Welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in a Cosmic Suit. Before I start today's show, please remember to go to the links below the video and click on my email list, get on there, because I've just been struck by YouTube again. So I can't post there for a week. It's currently Monday, the 27th of February. So you're probably going to watch this on Rumble or BitChute or on my website, themarkattwoodshow.com. Although I may post it back on YouTube if they let me back on. But the email list is the best place to keep up with me. Now, I try to cover a lot of subjects on this show, mainly positive ones, mainly solutions led. But the issue of child abuse is at the heart of everything that I do. And if you've not seen my poem, We See You, then you need to go and find it. It should still be on YouTube, but it's on all the other channels as well. And that poem's literally been seen by millions of people at this stage. And, talking about child abuse is essential because the governments of the world are run by satanic pedophiles. That should be plain to see. A blind man on a galloping horse looking for a black cat should be able to see this by now. And the thing that I can do, and the thing that any other podcasters watching this should be doing, is highlighting these stories and these issues, because the dark fears the light more than anything else. So I got an email a few weeks ago. It says, "Hi, I'm a mother of two kids, an 18-month-old and a 16-year-old boy. My son was taken out of my home by the juvenile court system." This is in the States. "He was sent to the boys' school here in Wyoming, where he was physically and emotionally and mentally abused for a year. I need your help to get my story out and starting a support group for other families that have gone through this or things like this. Please help." So I am joined today by Steena Lineback, who's here to tell us more about this. Hi, Steena.
Hi.
So I just read I don't know if did you hear all of that?
Yes.
Okay. So let's tell your story.
Okay, so my son has been now in the juvenile justice system for 3 years, and when he got sent to the boys' school, it was November 9th, 2001. So he has been home for about 3 months, and that was the hardest thing I've ever gone through, is having my son taken out of the home.
What date did you say? 2001?
Huh?
I thought I heard you say 2001.
2002, sorry.
So
2002, because he just got out.
Sorry, that's 21 years ago.
Sorry. So it would have been, he just got out, let's see, it's 2023. So he just got out November 11th, 2022.
Okay, right. Sorry. Okay, just want to clarify.
So he's been home for about 3 months. And when he was taken out of the home, like I said, that year was the worst year of my life. Not having my kid, not knowing if he was okay. With the Wyoming boys' school, like, I cannot, if I had any issues, I can even call the staff and say, "Hey, this is going on with my son, what's going on?" Because anything that the parents do, they take it out on the kids. So I really had to just keep my mouth shut and just hope and pray that he was okay. And you get to talk to him, a scheduled phone call for 10 minutes once a week. And then you can either have a televisit over the phone, like the video, or go and see him in person once a week. And when you go down and see him in person, you only get like an hour and 45 minutes with him. And that's on the weekends. So you're very limited on how much you can talk to your kids. You can't just call and like, "Hey, I want to talk to my son." That's not how they do that. And the first couple months he was there, he would call me just crying and saying, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry, Mom." It was so hard hearing your son cry on the phone and not being able to do anything. And that was the one thing that hurt me the most, is there were so many times he called and said, "I feel so alone." And they make those kids in there feel so alone, like they have nobody, even if they have parents that care. I don't know how to describe it. It kills you. And there was one of the times I went in there to go and see him, and I asked him, there was something that just kept nagging at me to ask him to pull up his shirt. And I was looking at his back. And as soon as I told him to pull up his shirt, because the room that we're in, the Wyoming Boys School is like a prison for kids. Like, the doors are locked. The only way they unlock is if staff unlocks them on their computer. So we're in a room that's locked, and they have cameras in the room. And I told my son to pull up his shirt because I wanted to see his back. There was just something that it was telling me to. And as soon as I did that, and he pulled up his shirt, a staff came in there screaming and yelling at him to pull his shirt back down. And the reason why he did that, the staff did, is because my son had marks on his back. At the time, I couldn't tell if they were whip marks but they were across his back. And so the staff got really upset that my son did that. And of course, I can't really say anything, because if I do, then they're going to take it out on my son when I'm not there. And since my son's been home, I asked him, I took pictures since he's been home. He's really leery about talking to me about what happened at the boys' school. I don't know if it's because he's still scared or if he's ashamed. I don't know. But he's slowly starting to tell me little things here and there. He has admitted that he has been abused there. He has admitted that the marks on his back are from a razor blade. But he didn't go into detail about how it was there, why it was there, exactly what happened. I know that he told me several times that the staff there put these kids down and tell them they're worthless, they're not going to amount to anything, that they're a disappointment to their family, just absolutely just destroy their self-esteem just to build them back up and then destroy it again and build them back up. I don't know if it's their way of keeping a hold on these kids while they're in there. I mean, because when I would talk to my son while he's in the boys' school, he would just tell me, Mom, I'm not worth it. I'm not worth it. And there was one time he told me, I'm just waiting for God to forgive me and let me know I'm worth it. And they use religion in there. So it's supposed to be Christian based. I don't know how much, he told me that a lot of the staff in there would talk about, God and how everything's a sin and how much my son has sinned, how much, he does need to have forgiveness from God. He does need, it's almost like a cult in there with the religion, it's really weird. The Wyoming Boys School, I mean, there's just not a lot of things there that are okay. It's from what I can tell, my son's never been restrained there, but he has seen other kids be restrained there, and they have chairs that they can restrain them with. The staff can get physical with them to restrain them. They put them in a little room that has I think it has a mattress on the floor and a toilet, and the rest of the walls are just cement. And they can leave them in there for hours and days. It doesn't matter, however long they want to leave them in there.
So can you go back a little bit and
Yes.
explain how your son got into the situation in the first place?
Oh, yes. So my son, he was in junior high. There was an incident with a little girl who accused my son of talking to her and touching her inappropriately. So the courts came in, stepped in. They charged him with, I think it was sexual battery. It was the less out of all of them. He's not a registered sex offender, nothing like that. And he kept telling me, Mom, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And I believed him, but his attorney at the time had told him, if you plead guilty, then you can stay home with your mom. And he said, you got 5 minutes to decide.
What?
And of course, my son wanting to stay home with his mom, of course, yeah, his attorney, me and him have gotten into it quite a few times because I feel like they're all involved and they're all part of it. So, of course, my attorney is going to try and coerce him into pleading guilty. And he did. And my son did plead guilty. Since that has happened, this little girl has gone and told my son's friends that he didn't do it. She's sorry. I'm planning on reaching out to this little girl at some point and being like, hey, if you're really sorry about this, I really need you to go. And I really need you to tell the courts. And because my son this should all be cleared. She was upset because my son didn't want a relationship with her. So she accused my son of all this stuff. And so my son, he didn't want to plead guilty, but he wanted to stay home with me, of course. And at the end of all this, he was sent away anyway. You know, his attorney promised him, you're not going to be taken out of the home. You're going to stay with your mom if you plead guilty, because if not, we're going to have to go through a trial. We're going to have to go through all this. And I told my son, this is your choice. I can't make this choice for you, but I would say no. And let's do a trial if you really didn't do this. But he was so afraid of being taken out of the home that's why he said yes.
Do you have any evidence or indications that there's any kind of financial drive behind the way this school is?
Yes, because we are low income. And they know that I don't have the money to get really good attorneys for my son or myself. You know, he's got a court appointed attorney and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't talk to my son. None of them do their job like they're supposed to. And I believe that they do target low income families.
And what's interesting is that this has not gone unnoticed. If you see this is YO file, which I presume is YO. Have you seen this story?
Yes. So I have both. There's two different stories and I have both of them in front of me. Now, the first one, I've actually talked to these reporters for the last year and a half. I have talked to them. My name's actually in there. I told them not to put my last name or my son's name in there because at the time that they were doing this story, my son wasn't out of the boys' school just yet. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want any backlash on them. But yes, these reporters have done really good at what but it seems like even though they put the story out, it doesn't really, it's like, I don't know if people just are afraid or they just don't care, but these kids are still being taken out of the home. They're still being it's supposed to be a treatment center when it's really a prison. Hmm. And they keep kids from the age of 12 and they can keep them till they're 21.
And who owns the school?
Department of Family Services. That's actually the boys' school is ran by Department of Family Services.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any kind of business element to this before we talk about the agendas behind it.
Not that I know of.
You know, thanks to Joe Biden, America's prisons are ram-packed with people on minor charges for cannabis and in there for many, many years. And then they're used as slave labor. And it's all a business. It's a racket. Yeah. As well as there being an agenda on top. And I get my spidey sense is saying something like that's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what's funny about that is they have what they call a superintendent. Now he is the one that is over the Wyoming Boys School. Now his home is on the property. He lives on that property. And then there's someone underneath him. I can't remember what they call him. It's not the superintendent, but it's somebody under the superintendent. They both have houses on the property. They both live on the property. And when I first went and saw my son at the boys' school, when I saw the two houses and I asked about it, it just made my stomach drop. I was like, why are they? So they don't have to pay, they live on the property for free. They don't have to pay rent. They don't have to pay utilities. They don't have to pay anything. But it's just like, well, why have their homes on the property? Something doesn't seem right about that. Because as soon as you pull into the boys' school, there's a house on the left, there's a house on the right. And that's where they live.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind to me is Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile had places to stay in prisons and in kids' homes and hospitals all over the UK. and he was literally given the keys. So somebody's given these people the keys to these
Yeah.
places to stay there. And I was involved in a case in a school in the UK which was being run as a paedophile ring for 50 years. And it was the kids that stayed there. It's like a honeypot to paedophiles, firstly, and
Yeah.
abusers, because they get away with blue murder. I mean, if you just do a little bit more of a search, even on Google, showing this school is getting some bad press.
Mm-hmm.
This is in the trib.com, Casper Star Tribune. Yeah, this looks like they've been. But what's interesting is this says the state-run facility for delinquent boys was doubling down on its ability to do so. So this restraining, shoulder lap, wrist, ankle straps, like Guantanamo Bay. Wow, it's being compared to Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this place has obviously got issues, and it's probably not the only one in the US.
No. And that's another reason why I wanted to go on your show, because I know it's not just here in Wyoming. I know it's not just me. I know that there's, treatment centers or whatever you want to call these places all over the place, and not just in the United States, but everywhere.
All over the world.
And yeah, and that's why I think more people need to be aware of what is going on with these kids and these families. And I think there's got to be something done about it. But it seems like, I've gotten attorneys, I've tried, and it seems like every time I do, they're scared to go up against Department of Family Services. It's like everybody's scared. And it's like, well, at what point do you stop being scared and you say, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and fight them, because this is about the kids. This is not about if they're going to, disbar you because you're fighting. It doesn't, to me, you should do whatever it takes for these kids. It doesn't matter.
Well, I have a friend in Ireland who's got some kids that she took out of school because she understands what's going on with the schooling system, and she understands what's going on with the social services. And she keeps getting taken to court. And last time she went to court, she stood there and said, I do not agree to stand under you. You are under maritime law. I'm a free woman of the land. And we all know all those. And she said she pointed at the judge. She knew his name. And she said, yeah, all those rumors you're hearing at the lodge, because we know you're a Mason, all those rumors are true. They're coming for you. And you that's why you're scared. And the guy dismissed the case, and she walked away.
Wow.
Very interesting, because she's got unbelievable courage.
Yeah.
She's been fighting them for over a decade.
Oh, geez.
And I understand how this happens. I mean, even I got threatened with fines and jail by the social services here a month ago because I took my kids out of school when they brought in a mask mandate. And then they said, you get too much time out of school, you'll go to prison. I was like, I laughed at her. I said, I don't know who you are. I know who Tulsa is. I know all about you. I'm not scared of you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, that's
well, and it is. It starts with the school. The school, I feel like the school is the first step. And then the next step after that is they monitor your kid inside the school, outside the school. And once they slip up or anything happens, that's when they start their case. And then they have looked at me as a mom. I mean, the judge has pretty much in court called me a bad mom without flat out saying you're a bad mom. They all just absolutely do not like me. And so everything that you do as a parent comes into question, when Department of Family Services comes in and the juvenile justice system comes in. And I even started questioning, well, geez, am I a bad mom?
No, you're not.
I mean, they get a hold on you, and it's like, okay, no, I'm not a bad mom. This is not about my parenting. This is not about how much I love my kids. This is not about anything like that. What it comes down to is child trafficking and money. That's what I feel like it is. That's all they care about. As long as they get, how much ever. I think me and my mom have researched it. And I think for them taking my son out of the home, for his DFS worker to take my son out of the home, I think he got like $30,000 for my son.
That's what I was alluding to earlier.
Yep. And then if my daughter, who's, a year and a half, they'll pay more for her because she's so little and she can't talk and she can't fight back. And they've threatened to take my daughter. They've threatened to throw me in jail. They've threatened to just absolutely just turn my life upside down. And I told them, bring it, because I'm not going to jail and you are not taking my daughter.
Well, don't fuck with a mama bear is what I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does take enormous courage, but it is time. I think personally, I think this is still going on in the world because
It is.
It's a test from God to say, are you going to stand up for yourself or are you not going to stand up for yourself? And I think that's where we're at. You know, this is biblical times. These are biblical times, because people keep saying to me, why is this still going on? Why is child trafficking still going on? Why are these things happening? Why are these explosions happening? I'm like, this is biblical. You know, This is Sodom and Gomorrah. And, you know, we're just being asked to make choices. So I commend you for doing that. Have you got any, when you say they threatened you, who exactly threatened you?
So there's what they call at the Department of Family Services. It's here in Wyoming. It's in Cheyenne. So it's like their head office. He's called an ombudsman, and he's supposed to be like a mediator between parents and Department of Family Services.
No, they'll be fixed as well.
Yeah. And so I actually called the governor's office because I was like, okay, something's got to happen. The governor here, his office has given me the runaround. I was like, I need a meeting with him. I need to talk to him. Well, they're like, okay, well, you need to do this first. You need to talk to the ombudsman. I did everything they asked. They still kept giving me the runaround. And I'm like, you know what? There's a reason why the governor's name is on every piece of paper that you get from Department of Family Services, because he's involved in it too.
Of course.
So I talked to the ombudsman, and, you know, I was like, you know, this is not okay. What you guys are doing is not okay. What his DFS worker is doing is not okay. He's lied to me. He's lied to my son. I mean, and he just pretty much told me, you keep doing this and you're going to go to jail. We'll come after you. We'll put you in jail. We'll take your daughter. And I'm like, you know what? You guys keep threatening that, but yet you haven't done it. And so I told him that's okay, because it got to the point where with his DFS worker, my son's, I started emailing him because I couldn't even talk to him because I would get so upset. So I started emailing him and I called him out. I was like, you know what? You've lied to me and my son so much since this has started. You lied about this. And he would deny it. And I'm like, you know what? So I finally was like, there was something that just told me to do this. And I have it emailed and I saved the email. I was like, you know, I don't understand why you're okay and why you're a part of child trafficking. And I put that in the email, and he responded with, I'm not a part of human child trafficking. And I said, I didn't say anything about human. I said something about child trafficking. And I said, that right there, the fact that you said human child trafficking was enough for me to be like, yeah, you are. Now I know for sure that that is what you guys are a part of. So I've called him out.
That's the thing. The other thing my friend said in court, I forgot to mention. She pointed at them and said, "You're all child traffickers, and you're all going down." And that's when they dismissed her out of court. Yeah, because they need to be called out. That's why this is happening to you.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, and I understand where parents come from. If you're terrified to go up against the corrupt system, I get it, because in the beginning of all of this, when my son first started court and all this stuff was going on, I was so terrified. I was so terrified that, you know, I was going to lose him completely, or I was going to lose my daughter. And I didn't want to stand up and I didn't want to fight. I didn't, because I wanted to do everything that they told me to, and down to a T. And I have. And that's the thing with parents. If you go through this, it doesn't matter if you do exactly what the courts say, Department of Family Services, CPS, whatever. It doesn't matter what you could do, everything they say, they're still going to take your kid. It doesn't matter. And I figured that out real quick. It doesn't matter what hoops I jump through. It doesn't matter if they told me to jump off a cliff and I did it. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're still going to take your kid. So I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to jump through hoops for you guys anymore. I'm not going to do everything you asked me to. I'm going to do what like my heart says to do, not what you guys are telling me to do. Because you guys are going to take my son out of the home either way. And since he's been taken out of the home and since he's come back, I wish I would have known what I know now back then, because I would have fought harder to keep him in the home. But I didn't know. And a lot of parents don't know fight for your kids, do whatever you have to. They can threaten all they want. It's your kids.
I guess the first thing you'd probably say, what would be the first thing you'd say to somebody who gets themselves into this situation? Because I think what the first thing I could think of is that I'd brief my kids on, if they say this to you, don't fall for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because your kid was put in a really difficult position.
Yes. Very, very difficult.
That's just impossible for him to say anything else unless he's armed with the knowledge.
And he wasn't.
Well, that's nobody's fault. They know that.
No, and he was doing everything. He was doing everything that they asked him to do as well. And it didn't matter. If all I can say to parents, if you're going through this, do not talk to Child Protective Services. Do not talk to Department of Family Services until you get an attorney. Because what they'll do is they'll take everything you say and turn it into what they want. So they'll make you look like this horrible parent. When you said, no, I love my kids, they take baths every day, they're fed. They will take whatever you say and they'll turn it around. Do not talk to them without an attorney. Do not let them in your home. That's all I can tell you. Do not let them step foot in your door. Well, legally, they have no means to, they can call the cops or whatever, but you have every right to have an attorney before they step in your home.
Well, they actually have no right to go into your home at all. The same as bailiff, the same as police. Because in common law, everybody watching this, all you have to say is, I refute your implied right of access to this property. Please leave. And they have to leave and they know this. And if they come to your door and they ask you, are you this person? Just refuse to answer them, because they're talking to your straw man. They're talking to the legal fiction. They're not talking to you as a free person. And that's how, so it's all consensual.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say, everything that they run in this system of maritime law is all consensual, and they trick you into entering contracts so that you have to do what they say.
Yep. And don't sign anything. If they give you anything, don't sign it.
Never sign anything.
No. And if they do, like you said, if they do come to your home, once you let them in your home, you're done. I mean, they will. And that's the bad thing about it, is these people that work for this system, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if they really know how corrupt it is, or if they don't know yet, or they do and they just don't care. I don't know. But they will make it seem like they're your best friend.
Yeah.
That they're on your side and your child's side, and they're really good at what they do. I'll give them credit. I mean, they're really good at manipulating. They're really good at, oh, we're friends. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help your kid. Your kid's not going to be taken away. Everything's going to be good. Don't trust them.
Well, I've been at this quite a long time, and I came to the conclusion a while ago that most of these people are Satanists.
I agree. The reason why, I don't know if you know the backstory of the reason why these reporters here in Wyoming had done this story. There's the Wyoming Boys School, and then I think in Sheridan, there's the Wyoming Girls School. So they have a boys' school and a girls' school. So, obviously they're not together, they're separate. So if you have a daughter and she gets sent away, she's going to go to the Wyoming girls' school. Well, there was this, I think she was about 15 or 16 at the time. She had gotten in trouble. There was something about a fight on the bus or something. She had gotten in the juvenile justice system. She had been in the Wyoming girls' school, got out, got placed back in the Wyoming girls' school. She had gotten out the second time. I don't think she had been out but a few months, and she ended up committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the reporters have started looking into, Department of Family Services, the Wyoming Boys School, the Wyoming Girls School, is because I've seen it for myself, because at first I was like, no, my son's going to be fine when he gets out. It has been so hard for him and me since he's been out. He's told me, Mom, I don't want to live. When he first got out, because they're going from a completely locked down facility. It's like prison, to all of a sudden all this freedom. It was so rough for him the first couple of weeks. He was waking up having nightmares. Like, it has been a struggle, and he is trying everything he can to numb it. Everything he can.
Well, if he's watching
just so he doesn't have to feel.
Yeah. Well, I understand.
Whether it be drugs, whatever it is, he's just trying anything. And I don't know how to help him. I've tried, and I keep telling him, you've got to go within, you've got to start healing yourself, you've got to start connecting. And he thinks, different ways of thinking. He believes in the Christian religion, and I don't try and push anything on him, but I'm like, maybe you should just start listening to yourself and really, try and heal yourself that way, instead of, trying to push all these feelings and everything aside, because it's getting bad with him.
Well, this is what I meant earlier by there being an agenda, because what do? They're creating these young men and women who have got emotional issues for the rest of their life unless they deal with it. And what kind of members of society is that creating? And is that a deliberate agenda? I'd say yes. I mean, the Catholic Church have been doing the same thing for hundreds of years.
Yeah. It's sick.
It is sick. That's why I
came. And it's just like, me and my mom are so frustrated, because at what point is this going to stop? At what point, I think so many parents, and even if you're not a parent, even if you just feel strongly about this and care about the kids, I think we all need to get together and stand up and fight this, because it's not going to stop until we do. They've shown us that over and over again. It doesn't matter. Like, my son's home. I'm so happy he's home, but he's still in the juvenile justice system. He's still on probation. At what point do they stop and leave these kids alone? At what point do they stop taking kids out of the home and sending them to these treatment places, or, the detention centers, or even group homes? Or it's all of it. It's not just where my son was at. It's just them taking them out of the home and putting them in foster care. Foster care is horrible. It's like, this is all tied in. At what point do people start and say, okay, enough is enough. We've had enough. These kids matter.
Of course they do.
Because they're going to continue to do it. Like, there's still kids that are being sent away to the Wyoming boys' school, to the Wyoming girls' school, all around the world, that are being taken out of their home and sent to these places that are physically, emotionally, mentally, and sexually abusing these kids. Yep. And they're just getting away with it.
Yep. So you said you're starting a support group.
I was going to see if I could have your help on that, because I don't even know where to start. Because like I said, I'm just a mom. I mean, until this has happened to me, I really didn't even know that this was going on. And I think that's also a part of it, is a lot of people don't realize that this is going on. But I would like to start a support group for not just Wyoming, not just the US, but all over the world, where, you can talk about what you've gone through, what your kids have gone through. Your kids can have a safe place to talk. If you're in the same, just maybe everybody get together and figure out a way to fight the system.
Well, I would recommend, don't do it on Facebook because they'll just take it down at some point. Don't do it on YouTube. The first thing you need to do is collect email addresses. So maybe what I'll do is set up a email collector page.
Okay.
And then, because you haven't got anything set up there, have you?
No.
And then if you guys watching this want to get in touch with Steena, then what I can do is just say, look, just give us your email address. You don't even need the name. Just put your email address in. That will go into a database. And then from there, you can email people and create Zoom chats.
Okay.
And get some sort of conversation going. And it might start with one or two people, but then, these things grow. These things will grow.
Yes.
And then you've got their email addresses then. So you are free of any draconian, cabal-controlled social media thing taking you down and spying on you, because then you can keep it as private as you can. And then have discussions with people that want to help you with this support group with ideas. And I'm talking to the audience here, because we have the power, and what we need to do is get a group of people together who are firstly outraged by this, which should be most people who watch my show. Secondly, we need to get educated in the real law, the law of the land, common law, natural law, God's law. And then we need to get our heads right so that, we don't fall apart as soon as we get confronted with any of these people. And if you're watching this and you've not got kids, or you never had kids, or you or you're just, angry about this fact that this is going on, because it is going on all over the world on a massive, massive scale. But it's one person's story can ignite the whole thing. Get involved. This is what God's been waiting for us to do, is stand up. So I applaud you for coming on, talking truth and standing up. I mean, your kids are my kids. This is the way I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody should have to go through this crap.
No, and that's another thing that bothers me is some of these kids that get sent to these places like this, they don't have parents that care. And that's really something that gets to me is, my son telling me he feels alone. I can't imagine these kids that don't have anybody, how alone they feel. And that's another reason why, I want to fight for the kids, not just the kids that have parents, but the kids that don't have anybody, that feel like nobody loves them, that feels like nobody cares about them. And they just get thrown into the system and get placed in all these different places and don't have, a mom and dad to call, or a mom and dad to come see them and give them a hug. That's another reason why I really want to fight for these kids, is because there's so many kids out there that don't have anybody and they're all alone.
Yeah. And if any of those kids are watching this, get on the email list as well.
Yes.
Get involved. Because together we can defeat all of this kind of thing. And it's yet more proof that this system that we all exist in doesn't have our interests at heart. Wants populations that are disrupted, divided, fighting against each other, abused, so that they can control us more. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell us?
I think that's about it. I'm just so grateful that you emailed me back and you've helped me with this, because I have tried, like I said, I've tried everything. I've tried the governor here. I've tried the legislative people here. Nobody will hear my story. Nobody will listen to me. They don't care.
Well, they're actively working against you, is what they're doing.
Yep.
And I'd suggest as well that you're not going to find what do you call them? Attorneys, lawyers. You're not going to find one of them that's going to help you either, because they're all part of the same club.
Yeah.
And this is about we the people taking back power and control and standing up. And we are powerful in numbers.
We are.
They really, really don't like it. And I'll tell you a story it's not quite the same thing. Well, I'll tell you a couple of stories. The paedophile ring story that I was involved with a few years ago involved a firm of attorneys, American attorneys in the UK. And what I saw them do was unbelievable. They pretended that they were out for the victims. They spent millions of dollars getting all the victims, giving their testimonies, and then they demolished the whole case so that nobody got anything. So what they did is all these guys who had all this hope, who'd spent 50, 60 years never telling anybody about the abuse they'd been through, and suffering with alcoholism, drug addiction, suicides, and everything, all that stuff been going on a very, very long time. They all were basically strung along and believed that they were going to have justice at the end of their lives, because they're all in their 70s now, and none of them got anything. Nothing. This is when I first really, really understood how this system works. And I've been through a lot of legal battles. I think God's put me through these things so that I could have the wisdom at this time. But I went through a similar thing over money, not over a child, where the bank was trying to make us pay a stupid amount of money for an overdraft after the crash in 2009, which I refused to pay because there was no signature on anything. There was no proof of it. And then anyway, we did all the right things. Got the solicitors involved, the solicitors ombudsman involved, etc., etc. Took them to the steps of the court 3 times, and I eventually decided to make an agreement. And I made an agreement just to get them off my back, because it was driving my wife at the time nuts. She said, "Just make an agreement. Stop fighting them." So I did that, and then I was paying the money every month to the solicitor. And then 6 months later, I get a counter court judgment for not paying any of this debt. And I was like, but I've been paying this every month. And then I found out the solicitor had just been keeping the money.
Wow.
When I say solicitor, so it's like in the UK, solicitor's like an attorney. And
Mhm.
so I was like, what? And he refused to give it to me or to pay it back or to give it. And then the court's already put a judgment on me and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, what
Wow.
the fuck? What am I going to do? So I told him, well, because I'm an expert in internet marketing, I created a page saying this company stole my money.co.uk. And then I sent it to him. And I said, if you type in your company name, you'll see this at the top of Google. If you type in any of these words associated with your business, you'll see this page. And it's the whole story of how you stole my money. And then
Wow.
he threatened me, and he was going to sue me, defamation of character, all of this kind of stuff. 2 weeks later, I had the money.
Wow.
The reason I'm telling you that story is because I just stood in my power, because I was being abused by the system, and they're abusing us on every angle. Through our kids, sexually, financially, everything. It's just
Mhm.
we are living in an open air prison. Really, this is Earth is an open air prison.
Yeah.
And they're just feeding off this anxiety. And on a metaphysical level as well, they're creating all this loosh from all these kids that have been abused because they're feeding off it, because we're also a farm. And I think the reason I'm bringing all of this up is for people to watching this to understand that's what we're really in, that's what we're up against. But it only exists because we allow it to exist, because we don't see through their deviousness on how they
No.
pull us in. Because like you said, if you knew now a year ago what you know now, you would never have let that happen.
No.
But they catch you unawares, and they prey on your ignorance.
Mhm.
So I think the big lesson here is to not be ignorant anymore, and the way to do that is to talk to each other. So if you want to
Mhm.
support Steena's, because I know I can feel her energy, and she's not letting this go.
No.
So I'll put
And
some of
I'm
the
not, and it's not just because of my son. Like I said, it's for all the kids and all the parents and everyone that they've affected. It's for all of them. I know that, and I tell this to parents, I know it can be scary, and I know, I was terrified, and I get it. But if we don't stand up, and if we don't all get together and tell them enough is enough, they're never going to stop.
Yeah, how many more children are going to have to go through this?
Yeah, exactly. And as we speak, there's so many kids. I think it's like every 30 seconds, kids are getting taken out of their home all around the world, constantly taken out of their home.
22,000 children go missing every single day. But
Yep.
if you lived in the UK, you'd think it was just Madeleine McCann over the last 20 years. That's why they tell you the Madeleine McCann story every single day, so that you don't notice
Nope.
22,000 children every day.
Yeah, and they try and get your attention somewhere else, and it's like, no, our attention needs to be for these kids, for these families, for ourselves, and enough with this corrupt corporations. It's got to stop. These kids matter.
Okay, well, I'll end the broadcast there. Thank you, Steena.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm serious. I appreciate it so much.
I'm going to stop the broadcast, but you hang on there. I'm going to talk to you about how we set this up. Thanks for watching,
Okay.
guys. Thank you, Steena.
Thank you.